Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Hi, I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. We begin our program with the latest on health and healing. And this is a study about the omega-3 fatty acids and how they can benefit women with PCOS. This is from Nanjing University of Chinese Medicine. The results were published of a meta-analysis in the Journal of Ovarian Research. And what they showed is important because we have a lot of women, not just in the United States, but around the world, who suffer from this PCOS, a hormonal and metabolic condition that it can include ovarian cysts, menstrual irregularities, infertility, and other conditions. And what they found, looking at all these studies of 816 women with PCOS, is that those who took for 8 weeks 1,000 milligrams, I repeat, 1,000 milligrams, that's not a lot, a day of the omega-3 fatty acids, compared to controls that received a placebo, they had better plasma insulin, fasting glucose, insulin resistance, triglycerides, total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol overall. All of those were improved. That helps prevent heart attacks also. So just one thing made all those improvements, and no toxic side effects, all natural, something to consider. In a blue mood, what to do? Have some berries. Yes, berries may boost your mood and improve your memory. Who says? University of Reading in the United Kingdom. Why? Because we know now that the berries, all the berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, boysenberries, goji berries, they all are terrific. Mulberries, they are flavonoid rich. And the flavonoid richness allows all these antioxidants and special phytonutrients to course throughout our body and nourish our cells and organs. So making yourself a flavonoid berry-rich drink, especially blueberries, improves mood in both children and young adults. So says the study at the University of Reading in the United Kingdom. And they used it on a group of young adults and young children, and using the positive and negative effects schedule. It's a study. Data showed a significant improvement in so-called positive effects, and that's important. Now, in all my studies, including my clinical studies, over 56 at this point, and over 160 laboratory studies, I use flavonoids in a whole variety. For example, onions. A raw onion a day keeps a stroke away because it thins the blood. Garlic a day helps lower your blood pressure. So these are all things that can help us. And by the way, it's not just helps just one thing. For example, if I have 10 different berries, if I have blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, boysenberries, blackberries, mulberries, and other berries, goji berries, every one of those berries will contain anywhere from, let's say, around 80 to 200 plus different phytonutrients. Now, some are the same, but a lot are unique to just that one fruit. And that's why in this case, they felt that the best berry to use to improve your mood and memory would be blueberries. But I would take it one step further. I have found that it's the wild blueberries that are best. Now, it's hard to get wild blueberries. They're very small, and most people look at something too small and think, well, that's too little. No, to the contrary. They're packed with nutrition, and they don't have to be sprayed. They're wild. So you don't have to buy them organic. You're just paying extra money. But you can buy them frozen. Now, I buy big, I guess they weigh about 3 to 5 pounds of frozen wild blueberries. And I'll take one bowl full and put it into a pot, and just with some warm water, not even heating it, and just within about 5 minutes, they loosen up and they're ready to go into a smoothie or still cut oatmeal, whatever you want. But what they do is they help, the flavonoids in them help our mood, and as well as mental health more generally. And this was published in the peer-reviewed journal Nutrients. So there's distinctive healing power of flavonoids and on our temperament So if you want a better mood, have yourself a blueberry, or better still, a wild blueberry smoothie in the morning. And we know the actions, and it also helps with cognition as well, and helps with depression. And also, there's a secondary involvement. It inhibits the enzyme monoamine oxidase, or MAO, and by blueberry anthocyanins. And that's important because that also involves how well our brain is transmitting messages from one place to another. And it also impacts our serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. So really, really good for your brain? You bet. Wild blueberries. Just one drink in the morning. That'll do it. Now, from Teiburg University in Germany comes a study about certain personality traits and satisfaction is linked throughout adult lifespan. What do I mean? According to the university, we all have different personalities. We know that. In fact, even two siblings that are twins, identical twins, will still have different personalities. And certain personality traits are associated with satisfaction in life. And despite the changes people may experience in social roles and responsibility over the course of their adult lives, that association is stable regardless of their age. And this was published in the American Psychological Association in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Now, why is this important? Because this goes back to something that many of you in this audience have watched in the documentary I did, and it's all about personality types. Life Energies is called, and also the book, Who Are You Really? That's out of print, but also dealt with this. And what it was, and I'm not going to go into it in depth now, but I found in my understanding of life, just one of those kind of epiphanies that happen to all of us at different times and in different ways, where you suddenly get a, aha, I know something I didn't know. We call it a gestalt, where you have an answer before you knew there was a question. There's like a quantum leap from struggling with issues to suddenly having a clarity of seeing the larger picture. And we don't always know, how do we get there? You know, we call it remarkable moments. We call it epiphanies. We call it deep insights. But we all have them. I'm sure you've had them, and I'm sure that it's helped you better understand things that you didn't know before. And sometimes just reading the right book, having the right lecture series, having the right conversation can inspire this. But anyhow, what I found was that there's one particular type of personality that I don't care what you throw at them, what crisis they go through, what hardships, they always seem to adapt, but not maladapt. Now, there's three ways we almost all face issues in life, no matter what the issue. We adapt to it, which is constructive and necessary. You know, we find our place, we find where we fit, we find our purpose and meaning. We master that purpose and meaning. We contribute to ourselves and to our family and to our group, whatever group that is, and to our culture, to our ethnic group, our religious group, and we feel satisfaction. On the hedonic scale, at the low end, at the beginning, I should say the high end, we find pleasure in the simplicity of day-to-day life. This morning, I was out in the fields, the pastures, running with my dogs. And when I got out of a shelter, and the other recently also, and they were just running and having the time of their lives. And every time I looked at this one who was just, he is so fun to watch, I just was smiling and laughing. And at his little antics, picking up leaves, and you know what puppies do, your puppies do the same thing. There's a commonality. They search their interest in everything. They find everything, chew everything, and they're just filled with love and joy. And that simple pleasure of running in the fields with the dogs, that's pleasure on the hedonic scale of simplicity. Being able to sit at a meal and take my time and enjoy the meal that I've created. And by the way, the fact that I'm a single adult doesn't mean that I get a junk meal or something fast or I'm watching television. No, I make myself the same meal. I made thousands upon thousands of you in my restaurants. Remember Gary's Place? Remember the Fertile Earth in 1970 up on 108th and Broadway? Anyone in this audience remember that? Interesting, because recently when I was back in New York City, I walked up to 108th, and there I was standing outside of the first health food store I opened, Creative Health Foods, back in 1967. It's still there, a little hole in the wall, but it's still there. In any case, as I'm standing out in front of what was the Fertile Earth restaurant, and that was the place where all the anti-war activists from Columbia University, the Berrigan brothers, Black Panthers, they all hung out there at night. And you could get a whole meal for $2.50. I did it as a cooperative. No money was made. We put our time and energy in, a whole bunch of us. Elliot Goldwag, who was assistant DA, friend of mine at the time, we all worked there because it was socializing, commensurating with good food. We grew the food up at the Fertile Earth Farm that I started, the first organic homesteading farm in New York State, and the first food co-op up there. Sorry, these little things just flowing through my mind. And the wonder of just coming in, you got selection. You got one of two entrees, one of two salads, one of two desserts, one of two soups. That was it. And it changed every day, depending upon what we were making and growing and harvesting. In any case, it was one of those remarkable experiences. But if you remember, we were making dishes, trying to make vegan dishes, and it was the first gourmet vegan restaurant in American history, I might mention. And that's where thousands of people came. We were packed from 4 in the evening to 11 at night, 7 days a week for 10 years. In any case, and then Gary's Place on Amsterdam. So a lot of you remember that it's that socializing, fitting in, doing something you enjoy. That's on the hedonic scale. Making a good dish for yourself and friends and your family. There's pleasure in that. Going shopping at a farmer's market, there's pleasure in that. It's the simple things of life that matter. Holding your loved one's hands. Going through photo albums of old pictures and suddenly, I remember that, that. We find pleasure in that. Just thinking, sitting and thinking about different transitions in life and what we were doing and who we were doing it with, and wonder what happened to that person. The other day, someone sent me some videos. I'm going to post them. And they were homemade films of our dance parties. And someone else said they had over 500 films of me lecturing. I don't have those. These were public lectures, but they would come, they said, and always film them all over the place in the New York area. And I said, well, send them. They haven't sent them yet. And I'd like to see them. But the dance parties I was watching, and they were packed with people. Now, this is from the 1980s, the early 80s up through the 90s. That's all that one guy had, because he moved out to Portland, he said. But I'm watching them, and wow, I'm seeing phenomenal dancers. I know the person I danced a lot with Virginia Reed. She passed from a stroke. Wonderful human being. But everybody watched her when she was dancing. She had an energy. She moved through life with such an ease. You couldn't rattle her. She was what I call a dynamic, supportive life energy. They make great parents. They are great friends because they're friends for life. Whatever you're going through, they got your back. Other friends, not so much. You need help? Well, maybe at some point in the future when okay, these people are always there for you. And there's an ease of being with them. My older brother was a dynamic, supportive. Everyone loved my brother. My brother was the handsome one in the family. He was the smart one in our family. He was the best athlete in our families. For years, I went back to one of my high school reunions 20 years later. He still had the intramural, 10 intramural awards. And why was he so easy to be with? Now I realize he was a dynamic, supportive. They support other people. You find them in the social sciences. You find them in nurses, in and people, teachers, people who, when they're at their best on the up end, they're just as comfortable as a well-worn shoe that, you enjoy it. So each one of us has one of 7 different life energies. Won't go into it today, but that ties into this idea that there's a certain group of people that they're just determining this by this longitudinal internet studies for social sciences. This was what it was for. And they said there's certain people that you just can't shake them. You can't rattle them. You can't upset them. They're going to adapt to every situation you throw at them and still be smiling. And they're the ones who live long lives. And they studied 9,110 people over 11 years for this study. And people from 16 to 95 years of age. So if you wonder why you feel good being around certain people, maybe not so comfortable around other people, maybe some people are wound too tight and just can't relax. What do you mean we can't relax, Gary? Of course we can relax. Yeah, no, you can't. You're overwhelmed. And you're going to overexpress that, and it's going to come out. And then there's going to be these bursts of anger or excess excitement, and then you're going to apologize, and then you start reminding yourself again, other people never get around to begin with. Always easy to be around them. They're very conscientious. They're very open. They see the world in the larger context. There's an agreeableness and an emotional stability to them. And thank goodness we have those people in our lives. This study just confirmed what I had found over 30 years ago. Just curious, if any of you remember the Fertile Earth restaurant and standing on the street corner with a person, because I was wondering, should I open another restaurant, another vegan gourmet restaurant? And anyhow, this, while I was talking with a broker and a friend who would run the restaurant, I would create the menu and everything. Anyhow, it was at 108th Broadway. Within 15 minutes of standing there, at least 5 people stopped, older people. Hey, Gary. And I didn't recognize him. Remember me? I used to eat here all the time, Fertile Earth restaurant. Well, that was 1970. That's 53 years ago, over half a century. And open up another one. So I'm thinking about it. Right now, no. But it was just the memories of doing something you enjoyed so much, preparing food for other people, original recipes, and suddenly in their life, and there was one guy, in fact, the New York Times Magazine did a feature on myself and Harry Beale. And when I met him, he was near death, and he was contemplating suicide, just taking some pills because he was in such pain. And he just, as a Hail Mary, came to me one day, and it was my restaurant. He came, Gary's place over on, and he said, I heard you might be able to help people who've got emphysema. I'm a chronic smoker. He was an older gentleman, and I took on that task and took him down to the Healing Springs Ranch in Texas. And he came back a different person. No more emphysema, and 2 more cancers gone, all these things normalized. And I didn't know, but he spoke to someone at the New York Times who called us, and we did this whole feature. Anyhow, one day I come in the restaurant, and he's sitting there at a table with a bunch of people. And he says, I just want to let you know, I come here because of the excitement of every dish that you serve is creative and different every day. That's the pleasure of life. And with that, I got to say we're out of time for our health nutrition segment. I look forward to sharing more. Have a nice day. Or come back for the next segment in a moment.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.